A former Kentucky teacher is calling it a bad decision, one that's come back to haunt her. More than a decade ago, Terica Dye appeared in a pornographic film because she says she needed the money. And now, 11 years later, the movie has cost her her teaching job. Live and direct tonight is Terica Dye and her attorney, Mark Blankenship. Terica, you said you needed the money. Well, why did you do the film? Because a lot of people may need the money, but they wouldn't do a porno film.
Well, first of all, let me say there was more than one film, but they were all over a decade ago. And I did it because I was homeless at the time. I had two boys. I really had nowhere to turn. I don't come from any money. I don't come from any, or I don't have any family members with any money. And I felt it was the quickest, fastest way to get money at the time.
And how much did you get paid, and how many films did you do?
There were 6 scenes, and I got paid about $700 per scene.
And how did the school find out that 11 years ago you did these scenes?
That's unknown to me to this day.
How do you suspect they may have found out?
I don't know. All I can say is that I feel like it had to be a malicious intent because it wasn't public. I told no one, but very few people knew. So I can't help but think that somebody deliberately wanted to have me come down from my teaching statute, and that's all I can say.
And what kind of a teacher were you? What exactly?
I taught physics and integrated science or earth science.
And when did you find out that they were bringing up the film? How did it come about?
Well, I got a letter in January with some pictures from the film, some stills from the film, mailed to me to the school with the school board's return address on it. I didn't think that it came from the school board, but I did look at it and I kept it and said nothing about it to anyone. And then on April 27th, the principal called me down into the office and asked me about it, and I admitted to it right away. And I was suspended within an hour.
Within 1 hour. Now, Mark, let me put it, this is the school superintendent said about the dismissal. He said, your presence in the classroom, referring to Terica, could cause a disruption to the educational process. I fear less than a serious approach by students who viewed the video or know about it. Didn't the school draw attention by doing this? And how many of the kids are going to be looking at 6 scenes from a film 11 years ago? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't have access to it in the first place. And, yeah, I agree with you. It's stale. It's so far back. I mean, what's real important here is that her acts, while we would all admit it was immoral at the time, they were legal.
And what are you planning on doing now, Mark? What are the legal options?
We've asked the Commission of Education in Kentucky to give us a due process hearing. They call it a tribunal hearing, where if we could present this case to some independent minds, I believe they would rule in her favor.
Well, in fact, let me put up a quote from one of the parents, because one of the parents says, she's not the person she was 10 years ago. We've all done things that we regret, except hers is on tape. That was a pretty powerful response. Terica, what do you think? When you see that, are you surprised, some of the parents are saying?
I was overwhelmed. I mean, I was overwhelmed and extremely happy about the parental support that I've gotten since this came out.
And tonight's hot topic, a Texas teacher is in hot water after topless photos of herself were posted online. Art teacher Tamara Hoover was suspended after the school discovered these pictures of her. Now she is fighting to get her job back. She insists she did nothing wrong. And we're joined now by Tamara Hoover, and on the phone with us is her attorney, Jay Brim. Tamara, why did you allow these photos to be put on the web to begin with?
I happen to live with a documentary photographer, and I didn't necessarily allow the pictures to be on the web. She chooses what she wants to put on the web. It's completely up to her discretion.
But didn't you voice concern saying, oh, I'm a teacher, or just no matter what, just anybody, why would you want your pictures up there? Why would you say, wait, maybe don't put those ones up?
I don't feel as if I have a choice in what she puts up. I trust Celesta, and I feel like I was helping her hone her skills as a photographer. So this was about art, not your privacy? Absolutely. It was actually done in a private session, and she takes pictures candidly sometimes, and some of them are set up. I feel like they're art. But doesn't it bother you now, because when you realize the internet is worldwide, it exposes you to everybody, including your students, including obviously other faculty members. Do you regret clearly making that decision to let her put these pictures up? No, I don't regret Again, I didn't allow her to do anything. She chooses what she wants to put in her portfolio. The only thing I would regret is if any of my students have been adversely affected by any of the media attention or anything like that.
Now, how did the school discover that these pictures were online? Because I can tell you, a lot of people would say, don't put these pictures up. You're a teacher. You should have, different standards, if you will. But how did it all come about that it was discovered?
Another teacher had some issues and expressed them in a class, and a student
There was word that teacher actually was angry at you and over art equipment, and this was sort of payback. Is that right?
Well, that's hearsay, but I think that would be a good assumption.
And how angry were you when you found that out? And now to hear that your students were looking at that, aren't you embarrassed?
I was disappointed that that action was taken and not addressed to me personally.
And are you embarrassed now that your students, were looking at these pictures?
I'm not embarrassed by anything that I've done. I feel like the photographer is an extremely talented photographer, and I believe that they were done in good taste.
And what was, your sexual orientation? I know you have a partner, female partner. Do you believe you've been suspended because of the pictures or your sexual orientation, or both?
I don't feel like my sexual orientation has anything to do with my suspension.
And what was your reaction when they said they were suspending you? Because this is what the school had to say tomorrow. They said the photos were inappropriate and violate the higher moral standard expected of public school teachers. A lot of people would say, I don't want my teacher, doing any naked photos online.
I don't feel as if I've violated any moral standard. I
don't?
Yeah, I don't.
And why not? Because don't you think teachers should be held up to a higher value, a higher standard? Don't you think you need to lead by example for your students?
Of course, I think that teachers should be examples, but what we do in our private lives should be left alone.
Let me bring in your attorney, Jay. Jay, how difficult do you think it is for her to get her job back? And do you understand why, she doesn't even regret that they were on there, didn't, regret that students saw it? Do you think the school is having a problem with her saying, look, it's just art?
Rita, she hadn't lost her job yet. She still is employed by the school district.
Right, but she's suspended temporarily. I know she's trying to get back and get reinstated. How frustrating is it?
Not, Rita. She's not. Remember, the school year is over. She was suspended for 1 week for the end of the school term, and now we're in the midst of the due process under Texas law.
What do you think is going to happen? And do you think, look, under free speech, you can put certain things up, you can do it? There is an issue, though. She is a teacher.
Rita, the first thing you've got to keep in front of you is that she didn't put these pictures up. Someone else did.
Right, but she allowed them, as you just said, and she didn't have a problem with them going up, Jay.
Well, no, she said that she thinks it's art, and she understands that the photographer made her own choice about that, and she trusts the photographer. But she never did give permission for those to go up. They were done in a circumstance where they weren't intended for students to see them.
What do you think is going to happen now, though, Jay? What do you think the chances are? Because clearly students did see them, and this is someone who she's a partner with who put the pictures up. She looked at the pictures. But what do you think is going to happen now? What's the chances that you think things will go back to normal? Because one of the other issues is, as we know, the district is looking at revoking her teaching certificate. Where do you think your chances stand?
That's not true. That's not true that the district is looking at revoking her teaching credentials. That's not the way it works in Texas. The district doesn't have anything to do with that.
So who is looking at revoking it, possibly?
Nobody.
Nobody is, because we were told that they were possibly looking at that action, which a lot of us agreed. In fact, there were some published reports saying that. Are those reports not true?
I'm not sure what you're looking at, but under the Texas system, if and when she actually got terminated by the school district, there would be a report made to the State Commissioner of Education's office.
And it hasn't gone to that point yet.
A separate look. They would do a separate investigation of whether or not there was something that happened that might actually impinge her certificate. There's a difference between being employed by a school district and being qualified to teach, and it's two different actions involved.
All right. Well, let me bring in, if I could, to the conversation. Let's bring in defense attorney Kimberly Lerner and also former prosecutor Wendy Murphy. Wendy, what's your reaction to all of this? She's suspended, as we're just hearing now, some new information. It's different than a lot of the reports out there, but suspended for 1 week. Appropriate or not, Wendy?
I actually think she deserves a harsher punishment, and one of the things I haven't heard yet, but I did read, in a Wire story was that this was not sort of accidental. She didn't know what was going on.
Well, we just even heard Wendy. I mean, she even said, look, you know, this is a partner. She knew she was putting him up. She was fine with it.
Right.
It's art.
Right, but this is not her private life when it's on the internet. And I read a story that said she actually showed the pictures to her students on a school computer. You've got to be kidding me. And for her
let
to
me
be sitting
let me
here,
bring her in. Let me bring her in tomorrow. Is that true?
Yeah,
Did you actually show them?
That's absolutely not true. These were never intended for the kids to see. That's a false statement.
Okay, well, that's what I read.
Them? Were you ever showing them in any condition tomorrow?
I never showed the students. I never advertised the website to the students.
Rita, if I may just interrupt.
Go ahead, Kim.
I believe the story had said that Gail Andrews, the other teacher, when she was informed by one of the students that these pictures existed, she accessed a computer in the school with other students around, and she showed the students.
Yes, and I have heard that. I have heard that. And what do you say about that? Because this is the other issue that you hit on, Kim. You know, this other teacher, as we're hearing from tomorrow, essentially sort of, you know, ratted her out, if you will, over art equipment. Is that fair, Kim?
You know, this whole thing is extremely disturbing. What she does in her personal life is none of anyone's business, except if she's committing a crime or if it interferes with her ability to teach. By all accounts, she's an excellent teacher. Now, the school talks about this higher moral standard. I think Miss Andrews' morals should be brought into question.
This is the teacher who ratted on her.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Wendy, what about comparing her to all these other cases? You know, Deborah LaFave, also Pamela Turner. Is it fair?
Look,
you know, because these are different cases. This is, you know, these are folks who were involved in sexual activity.
This is not her private life.
But
this is a public matter.
Is it fair to say that she goes in the same realm with the? Is that an unfair comparison?
It is a very appropriate comparison, even though there's no evidence she sexually assaulted or done anything to exploit a child. She knew the students knew about these pictures and saw them and had access. That's not the issue. That is not the issue. That is not the issue. And I'll tell you something. If she ever did sexually exploit a child, this would be Exhibit 1 in the criminal prosecution.
Let me bring in tomorrow. Both of you, let me bring in tomorrow. Because tomorrow, I understand you're going to say that obviously the students, you didn't show the students, right? That you didn't share them. You didn't want the students available, right?
No, I didn't. I was never intending for the students to see it. I never advertised it for the students to see. I've never been sexually involved with a student.
Rita, if she had been on a nude beach and a student had seen her, would she be in the same predicament?
She knew they were on the internet. She let her students see them because she knew that the students used the internet. You've got to stop saying she had a right to do this.
She had an absolute right. This is her personal right.
No, she also can't get drunk and walk down the middle of Main Street and say that she has a right to do that as a teacher too, even though it's not a crime. She has a morals clause. She knows she's held to a higher standard. She did it anyway, and to call it art is irrelevant.
Kimberly, go ahead. Kimberly.
Her contract makes a moral judgment
that these photos were not artistic.
You know what
your
photos
moral
are?
Judgment call.
You're not even showing the topless photos with the spikes and the whips and the chains. Why aren't those being shown? How's that affect your moral judgment? You're just showing these soft pictures that don't at all look sexual. The description of the photographs that she got in trouble for are highly sexual, erotic. Her sticking her tongue out with her partner, doing sexually erotic things.
But Tamara, is it fair to say that, look, it could be everybody's interpretation of art is different, Tamara? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Art is open for interpretation, but the few pictures that are in question have been taken out of context, and the body of work is an amazing body of work, and it is art. And
let me bring in, let me bring in Kimberly, then I'll get to you, Wendy. First of all, what do you think, should a teacher be held to a higher standard, and is it one of these things where you say, look, just stay away from it? Kimberly?
You know, it's a slippery slope. I think that teachers should be held to a high standard, but it reaches a point that what if you find out a teacher had an abortion and you don't like that and you think that's against your morals? She should lose her job. These are
Let me bring in Wendy. Wendy, where do you draw the line? Kimberly brings up a good point. Where do you draw the line?
No, this is very simple as line drawing goes. Teachers, students, and sex do not go together, period. End of discussion. There is not even a close question here. This should not be a sexually erotic teacher on the internet with students who have she has a responsibility to.
Let me bring in Tamara. Tamara, I'm going to get you the last final word. You get the last word, Tamara.
Absolutely, I agree. Never should you ever say teachers, sex, and students in the same sentence. And I have not participated in either of those. I've participated in
bodies, whips and chains.
Let her answer. Tamara, go ahead.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I have not participated in anything immoral or overtly sexual in nature, and I have not ever sent that to the students or included the students in that part of my life.
Okay, that's going to have to be the last one. And again, the students did get a glimpse of it, and again, not your intent, but certainly that is what happened. Tamara, thank you very much.
Thank you.